Hey guys, it's Laurie of Laurie's Sewing, and today is Wednesday, May the 12th of 2021. So this past Sunday was Mother's Day, and these are gifts from my daughters. So my youngest daughter provided me with this book, The Gardener Says, and it is quotes, quips, and words of wisdom, compiled and edited by Nina Pick. And it is just the cutest little book. I mean, I have just been enjoying the heck out of it. I have already gone through all of these. This is the little page marker. And they're just adorable. Okay, this is really weird. I have a cousin named Tim Richardson. It's not my cousin. And then I have this book by Susan Branch that my oldest daughter down in Oregon sent. And it is a book for someone my age to fill out. Just kind of as you go. There's just a whole lot of information. And you can tell that it's been put together by someone who is, I want to say, wise. Someone who is wise. It's very, very, very sweet. I love the drawings. They're very Susan Branchy. And it's just precious. So these are treasures for me that I wanted to share with you guys. And I have a box underneath here that I will open. All it is really is polyfill. So I think I ordered 2 bags so that we could make the bed for Appu out of this. And remember, I will remind myself as well as you guys, I'm going to size that pattern down just a wee bit. It doesn't have to be as big as the one on the pattern. Basically, the small size is just a little bit too big. And I think it's a little bit big this way, and it may also be a little bit too thick. So I'm going to have to kind of look at how I'm going to size it down. Okay, and that will be for that fabric. And then I have another fun project that I want to start. I don't know if I'm going to get all the way through today, but we'll see. We will see. So here is the big box. I'm using my paper cutting scissors to open it. So I now have 2 bags that I think are 20 ounces of Polyfill Crafter's Choice fiberfill. It's a little bit more dense, I think, the Crafter's Choice is. The way it feels, I think it's going to be a good choice. And weirdly, today, I started thinking about making a rag doll. We are going to reduce the size of the bed this direction and the depth. So the amount this way will also be reduced somewhat. I just think it's a little bit better for him, for the purpose of the bed, and he'll just be able to use it a little bit better. But it's nice to know that he is enjoying his catio. He likes to sit out there on rainy days, which, if you are familiar at all with the Pacific Northwest, you know that we have a lot of rainy days. So anyway, the next thing that I wanted to talk about was, because you know my videos are always about 100 different things, I'm kind of getting to the point, I'm impatient with myself with the amount of leftover fabrics that I have. And I know that I need more grocery tote bags. So I have decided that when I have pieces like this is a very large piece of fabric. I'm using this and I'm using this, but I have heaps and wads of leftover fabric from projects that I'm going to, with a thoughtful and mindful eye toward a specific look, I'm going to cut the fabric into pieces that are all the same size. I've decided that's what I'm going to do. I had originally thought that I was going to take just random odd shapes and paper piece them into sort of a collage-y, painting-y kind of thing. But I think it might be more satisfying and maybe a little bit easier to manage pieces of fabric that are all the same size. That way, if I wanted to do 8 by 8 or 10 by 10 or 5 by 5, then I'll have 5 inches times 5 this way and 5 inches times 5 going this way, so horizontally and vertically, and then I'll have it all will be the same size, and I'll know within just a few, maybe a couple of inches, depending on my seam allowances, exactly what size I have, and from there I can use that piece of fabric to create something, rather than in the end ending up with something that I've got to just fold up and put away until I end up having enough to make it a square or a rectangle that I can use. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time right now cutting up some of that fabric because I need to do that for myself. It's like I have this huge mess in my sewing closet that is not leaving my head. So I'm going to go grab some fabrics to cut up, and that way I'll know I'm making progress on that, and I'll feel confident and comfortable in the idea that what I'm doing is going to benefit me. And here it is. These are shark's teeth, prairie points, and little half moon flower type thing. I found a lovely medium weight press on, iron on, fusible type interfacing that is lovely. Alright, so that's where we stand at the moment. This is going to be a fun project and I'm very excited about it. Okay, so today is the day that I am going to work on Appu's little bed. And I think yesterday when I was doing the recording I misspoke about how to resize, especially something like this. We don't want to cut it down. Cutting it really alters the pattern, but if you can measure the amount you do not want and fold it up out of the way, just like you would if you were sewing from a pattern and you were altering the pants to be shorter, you would just fold the legs up at a certain point marked on the pattern piece. And that's basically the same thing that we're going to do with the bed pieces. The other thing we could do, because it's just a rectangle, is just redraft or take measurements. If there's a specific place, like for Appu that we're going to be using this, we kind of want it to fit on a shelf in his catio, and these are just rectangles, so all we have to do is measure that rectangle, decide how long it needs to be and how wide it needs to be, and then fold up the part that we don't need, keep it out of the way while we're cutting out the fabric. And then of course the sides, the long sides and the short sides will need to be adjusted if we do an adjustment this direction, and I'll show you that in just a minute. I'm going to use this. This is one of my favorite tools right here because I have to reach across a lot of times way over there to get something. It's very handy. Okay. All right. So I've trimmed the extra bits away from the fronts and all the different areas on these two pieces right here. This one has not been dealt with. So I'm going to do the same with it. But before I do, I want to say, if we're going to make adjustments, I'll move all this back out of the way again. If we're going to make adjustments this direction, then we can fold that up like I've done there. I just measured how much I don't need, and I folded it out of the way like that. The second thing we can do is from the center, do the exact same thing. Measure how narrow we want this bed to be, and then make that fold again. It could be that that'll be difficult because this is going to want to fold out of the way. I don't recommend that you use tape. My suggestion is pins. So, and not in the center, just pin off to the side here. And then the same thing on the other side, like so. Of course, make sure that you're going through all the way. All right, and then make your measurements. And for me, I'm going to fold it in half, taking care not to stab myself. You know how I feel about that. There we go. And I'm lining up the two notches on the pattern piece. So this one and this one, I'm just going to line those up. What will happen then is the two notches on either end will be folded right in half. And those are kind of your landmarks. And then really press the center with your finger so you can see it when you reopen this back. And that's another landmark. Okay, there we go, and now I'm going to fold to the center back on itself. Like so. And check the measurement. So we've got a 15, and I want the bed to be 14, so I have a ½ of an inch seam allowance if I do this fold, which is what I wanted originally. If you go back and watch that video, which I will try to remember to link below this one, you'll see we talked about using a bigger seam allowance for the bed because it's going to have a little bit more stress put on it. Okay, now I can pin in the center, and that will keep it from coming unfolded while I'm cutting out my fabric. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is check to make sure, I don't want to cut this one yet, check to make sure that we can make the sides, and of course these are the short sides, but now they're way bigger than the bed, so we have to get this to match this. So again, I'm going to fold this on top of itself, match up these two center notches, just fold them in half like that. Give myself a really good fold line to use as a guide. And then I'm just going to bring each of these two sides in. Alright, and now I'll fold it. I don't think I'm going to go half. I think, well, I don't know, maybe half plus 1 inch, I think. Alright, so we have the top, the bottom, and the two short sides. And next we will get the long sides sorted out. Alrighty, so I'm going to go have lunch, and when I return, we're going to get busy on this. We need to cut the fabric and make sure that we have enough, which I believe we do. We'll need two pieces, one for the top and one for the bottom of our print, and then we'll need two long sides and then two short sides, and that will be the outer pieces. That's the cover. So looking at what I have to make, hold on a minute, apparently we have to clean the streets again. Okay, so anyway, this is what will be on the outside and can be removed to be washed. I need to get my Velcro out. So remember yesterday, I really don't think I want to use white broadcloth for the inside because it'll just get filthy, you know, as dirt and grime float through this fabric to the inside. So what if I took all of these and stitched them together and made the inside bedding out of this? I think that's what I'm going to do. I think it's a great way to use these up. It did occur to me that if this is something that you've never done before, it might be a good idea to share with you what I'm doing and why I'm doing it the way I'm doing it. So I went ahead and stitched pairs together. I just did what I call clothesline stitching. where I just lined up sets of 2. This is how I was making masks at the beginning of the pandemic, by the way. I would just make 2 at a time, put 2 together and stitch, and then put 2 more together and stitch until I had enough that I felt like I could get those done in one day, and then I'd do another set, make those masks, etc. So I call it clothesline stitching because it looks like they're all just hanging on a clothesline. So now I have a whole bunch of pair of these squares put together. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to press them flat. I'm going to press the seams flat, just like this, and then I will open them up and press the seams flat, because I want this to be laying flat when I start to build out the piece of fabric for the bottom and the top. I don't, in other words, when I put these together, I don't want some to be flat and some to be off to the side, and then when I open them up, I have a big blob on this side and not as much of a blob. You know, let's see if I can get you where you can see what I'm talking about. So once I have these stitched together this way, if I have opened up seam allowances on some and I've left them, you know, together on others, then I'm just going to have globby, blobby seams, and I don't want that. So I'm going to open them all up. Now I could just finger press, but I also have the issue of wrinkly fabric. So that is why I'm going to go over to the ironing board. The first thing I'll do is just take it to the ironing board like this and press it flat, and then open it up and press it open. When you press it flat first, it relaxes the fabric and the thread so that it's a little bit easier to manipulate it to get that seam to lay nice and flat once you've got it open. Then once I've done that, I will start doing pairs again like so until I have my fabric. So I need to be mindful of how wide I need to build it and how long I need to build it. And of course I can always trim it down, and for that matter I can always add another couple of these if I need to. But if I don't want to waste any fabric, then I'll just keep checking until I've got it pretty much the way I want it. So I'm going to go ahead and take care of that. I have sets of 4 clothesline stitched together, so we're going to cut these apart. Oops, somehow that got stuck. And open them out, and they'll have to be pressed, of course, where that seam allowance is. Okay, so there's all of those. So there's one set. There's quite a few of these, which obviously this won't be enough, but it's a start. And make sure that my notches are not on a seam. So here's the thing, I'm thinking instead of putting a whole bunch of squares together, I also have this, which is a lovely heavy fabric, and I believe I have enough to cut 2 pieces for the short side. I need to remove the pattern pieces and transfer these little dots. I've got 3 sides pinned together, so the next one will be the next long piece. And again, I'm just going to mark the pin marks. Like so. Or the ink marks, I mean, with pens, the pin marks. There we go. And this one, also right sides together, like so. Okay. So when I stitch, I'm going to be stitching from this ink mark to this ink mark. And then I'm done, and I'll move on from this ink mark to this ink mark, and I'm done, and I'll do that 2 more times, and I'll have essentially a square, well, actually a rectangle. So let me take care of that, and then we're going to attach the top and the bottom. All I have to do is clip the threads. Don't need a bunch of threads getting in my way. I did lock all of the stitches at each of these intersections. So in other words, stitch forward, stitch back, stitch forward, stitch back, stitch forward. And that will keep the ends of those stitches from coming undone, which they will have a tendency to do in a situation where we're attaching, you know, a top and a bottom piece, kind of like a pillow with a gusset. You would want that to have a nice locked seam. There should be one more. Here it is. So the next thing that we are going to do is flip this over. This is our right side right here, and it's the top. So we're going to take this corner and place it right in here like so. So as you can see, I can now stitch because I left that unstitched right along that top edge. So as you can see, I have it pinned. These are the 2 short sides pinned, and these are the 2 long sides pinned to what will essentially be the top. Now what I will do is stitch right along here, all the way around. Take all the pins out, of course, don't sew over pins, and then I will attach this piece to this side in the same manner, leaving an opening on this one. So I won't stitch, say, from here to here, and then that is how I will flip it to right sides out and then apply all of the polyfill. I realized that I said that this would be stitched and done when when I came back. However, there's a couple of things that I need to point out that I did not point out before. One is it makes it so much easier if you mark a spot on the side where you're going to leave stitching off to stuff something. Ignore this one. I didn't feel like this was wide enough, so I extended it out just a little bit longer. I am going to go ahead now. I've got this, the top is stitched on. I'm about to stitch on the bottom part, and I'm going to leave an opening so that when I turn it to the right sides out, we'll have a place to put the batting. It's turned to the proper side. It's right side out. Alright, and now I am going to go ahead and get the polyfill and just start filling this up. Make sure that the polyfill I have is not something that a cat would be allergic to. I doubt it. Okay, so this is a 16-ounce bag that I have been pulling out of for quite some time, and then I ordered two 20-ounce bags, so I have plenty. I'm going to go ahead and just finish this one up. Where is the opening? It should be right here. Alright, and you want to make sure that you really get the corners first. Use my paper cutting scissors. I can always find them because I have tied a piece of fabric and I won't get them mixed up. Alright, for some reason the cut line is on the bottom. That's interesting. I always imagine it's kind of like, you know, when you first get a ball of yarn and you're either supposed to reach in and pull from the inside, or do you just pull that piece of yarn on the outside? Is this the same thing? Is it like you're supposed to cut it here, or does this have nothing to do with anything? I don't know. Okay. Ooh, it has a completely different feel. Oh my goodness. This is so interesting. Oh, I like this. This is my new favorite thing. Whoa. A moment of ASMR. Wow, I can't explain it, but if you're interested, this is called dry polyester packing, and it says it's ideal for doll making. It's amazing. Wow. Coarse dry fiber that stays in place, easy to pack in tight spaces, washable and hypoallergenic, made from recycled materials. Yay! Even better. Okay. Now this is about as thick as I think Appu would want it to be. So I'm going to manipulate the fiber fill so that it's in the edges and the corners, and that it is flat and evenly distributed on the inside. Beautiful colors. I'm so excited to have received this. I paid for it. I'm just surprised it showed up as fast as it did. Love it. Well, It's a whole new day, by the way. Today's Friday. It is Friday the 14th of May, 2021. I call it Free For All Friday because I think a lot of people think Free For All Friday means you can eat whatever you want. But for me, Free For All Friday means I'm just going to do what I feel like doing. Okay, but what I forgot to do yesterday was use this as a pattern. Remember, I said I was going to trim this out, our glamour fabric, using this as the pattern. Totally forgot. So I'm kind of having to build it out, but that's fine. We're smart, intelligent people. We can do that. I wanted you to be able to see the Velcro. It comes like this. It is on a plastic tube, like so. And the hook side is here. The loop is here. And then to store it, I just fold over a piece of the loop onto the hook and it'll just stay like that. I haven't had any problems with it coming unwound. I need to stitch this opening. I need to stitch this closed. So I'm going to do that by hand with a needle and thread. And I did want to mention again, we didn't get to go over this. It arrived late yesterday. So let me grab my paper scissors right here and let's look at these real quick. I've never had in my entire life, for myself, I've never had a value pack of thread, and I'm really enjoying the whole thing here. So there are other color selections. So this colorway is basically the pastels that you might use in your sewing. And then they had like a fall colorway with dark, rich tones. And then there was a winter with blues and silvers and whites. I think gray was mixed in with that one. And oh, jewel tone. They had the dark, rich jewel colors that were also an option. I just chose this because these are the colors I typically sew with. So of course we have white, which I think is always 800. I'll check that. And this pale baby or ballerina pink is 210. So if you see colors that you like, you'll have the number. You can take that to your Joann's or Michael's or wherever you buy thread. I don't think it's really showing. Maybe up next to the white you can kind of see it's like a little ballerina pink. Okay, and then this pink is $6.59. It's just a good all-purpose pink. Then there's the bright pink, which is $8.89. I don't know if those colors are showing up either. Okay, and then we move to the purple, which is $1.58. And then we have this beautiful blue. It's a $2.78. And a pale blue, which is $2.76. So these must be the same tone. They do tend to have a good tone. Yep, matchy matchy. All right, and then this beautiful seafoam green is $1.91. I don't know, does anybody refer to this color as seafoam anymore, or is this a different color? I don't know. I love, love, love this pretty, pretty pale green. $1.52. Let me double check. Yep, it's a 5. It's a really pretty color. I'll hold it next to the white so you can see the contrast. And Sunshine Yellow is $8.52. And again, with the white, and you can see it's very bright. It's a very bright yellow. So those are those colors. I like them a lot. Let's see if their white is always 800. That sounds right to me. No, it is not. So this Gutermann 500 millimeter, 547 yards is also 100% polyester. It is color number 20. And this one is 800. I'm trying to see if I can see a difference. Yeah, I think it's kind of showing up. I'm going to do 2 double half knots. Like so. Right. Now, this has been stitched up. It feels very nice. It's fluffy without being too fluffy. So you have your Velcro cut out, you separate it, and you pin the loop half, or as they refer to it, the soft side of the fastener, to the outside of the placket, having one edge even with the fold, and the ends extending equally past the dotted lines. And then we're just going to edge stitch the fastener in. Okay, so before I continue, there was one other thing I wanted to mention that I forgot to mention, and that is, in the case of the fabric that I have, the print is kind of tossed. It doesn't have a severe directional print. In other words, the Smitten Kitten fabric is a directional print, or I think it was called Carnival Dogs, I think is what this was called. It has a very obvious direction. All of the dogs are oriented so that if we're looking at it this way, they're all sitting as they would normally be sitting, and all the doors are opening in the proper direction, and the signs, the words are readable, they're not upside down, they're not sideways. But if I wanted to just randomly cut this fabric, I wouldn't really be able to, because if I cut one piece this way, then the dogs are on their side. And then if I flipped it over and I cut one this way, these dogs are upside down. But the kitty fabric in this case is what they call tossed, so that some of the kitties are facing this direction, and this one is upside down, and this one is sideways, and this one is this direction, and they're just all just kind of tossed, so that you are offered the opportunity to use the fabric through whichever way you want to, even if you wanted to use it sideways. So that is why I'm able to cut these pieces out at the weird angles that I did. So the selvages are over here, and I have cut it with selvages at the top and selvages at the side, because it doesn't matter. I mean, if I were trying to be true to warp and weft, then yeah, to some extent that warp and weft issue might be an issue. But for a project like this, it's not. There's no draping that I have to worry about. I'm not making an evening gown where I've got to think about what direction those fibers are going to go, and on the body, how do they flow, and all of that kind of thing. That's not an issue for a craft item. It's really not even an issue for, say, a quilt or a tablecloth, this-ish. Sometimes it can be an issue. If you have a round tablecloth, you have to think about these things, but not in this case because this is a tossed print. Okay, so I've got all the pieces cut with the exception of the Velcro. And the Velcro gets cut, if we read the instructions, it's going to be, oh, and I forgot about, yeah, I've got to get out the fusible interfacing, but the Velcro goes inside these dotted lines. So I'll have to take these pins out, measure how far from the end, over there, measure how far from the end where is it? Oh, here it is. The dotted lines are on both sides, and then subtract that from the piece that I have here. So that is going to be, there's the dotted lines. So that is 2.5 inches. So I'll need to make the Velcro 2.5 inches in from each side. So 2.5 inches in on this one and 2.5 inches in on this one on both. So I'll have both of the placket pieces correctly set for the Velcro. But let me go grab that fusible interfacing, get that applied, and then I'm going to show you how to do the Velcro piece, the placket part. Alright, I have applied a fusible interfacing to both, and I'm looking for my center markings. Let's just go ahead and use this water erase pen. Alright, so here is the notch right here and here and here. Gotta find the lower notches right there and there. Okay, so that's the center where these water erasable marks are on here. The next thing, and remember, the interfacing is my idea. It is not part of what is written into this pattern. I decided to do that because I wanted a little bit more stability on these placket pieces. And that's the great thing about sewing. You can do things like that without the fear of anybody saying, oh my gosh, you can't do that. Okay, the other thing I have to mark is that 2.5 inches from each end. And I'm just going to do that by lining these up on my cutting mat like this and count 1, 2, and then a half is right here. And I'll just draw that, and then over here, same thing, one for the other. And the Velcro goes inside those lines that I just drew. Okay, right there. And I'll use the Mr. Pen scissors because they don't cut fabric. The reason my paper cutting scissors are on my ironing board because I used those to cut the interfacing. I don't use my fabric scissors to cut fusible interfacing. Okay, so I have this piece cut. Now I'm going to measure the hook side from this. I'll line that up. God. It is really strong Velcro. It's time to get them applied to these two placket pieces. So with this face up, we are going to fold right there. Okay, and I'm going to use my crystal head pins. If you have glass head pins, this is when you want to use them, because we're going to take it over to the ironing board and press, and with crystal or glass head pins you won't melt the pin into your fabric. Alrighty, so we're set up here. Let me remove these pins. This has been pressed, and as you can see, no melting because these pins are what are commonly referred to as crystal head pins. So it reverses and then it goes forward. Well, evidently we're not done with, with the placket pieces just yet. So the next thing that we're supposed to do is to edge stitch along the top of this where it's been folded but not stitched. So both pieces will get that treatment. Then we put them together and we stitch these together right along this edge. Okay, so I've got myself back in stitch number 1 and edge stitches just right along that top edge. That's just to keep it from ever being an issue. It won't come up, it won't be a problem. Now, in order to get all of this done without ever having to take my sewing out, I'm just gonna turn this and edge stitch along here. Lift my needle, lift this, pull it out, and do the same thing on this one. I haven't cut my thread yet. Okay. And now we're going to stitch right along that dotted line. And I recommend going slow. Okay, so these two have now been stitched together and will only open between this line of stitching and this line of stitching, which is the way it's supposed to be. So the next step is to take the end, which is the short piece right here, and stitch one of these to this end and one of these to the other end. We have two of these, and this gets applied right sides together like so. I love these kitties, they're so cute. Okay, I'm trying not to look at the antics of my crazy neighbors. So I'm just gonna, now this is the other end. I have fixed this end over here, but I have to remember that I can't stitch from end to end. It has got to be about 1/4 of an inch from this end and 1/4 of an inch to this end. So here's this. This is where it's stitched together. There's the placket, and then here's the short end, and that's where it's stitched together right there. Alrighty, so the next bit of stitching is to take one. I don't need 2 of these, so just take one of the back side. It's the same size as the front, which is where the placket is, and attach it right sides together to the sides. So I'm going to just use these notches as a reminder that this is up. Instead of putting one notch on the bottom and one on the top, this just helps me. And I'm going to go right sides together and then stitch leaving 1/4 of an inch unstitched along that edge right there. Okay, back up, come forward, my needle up with the previous stitching. Okay. Okay, there we go. Alright, I'm going to try to get you guys in where you can see. I have pinned the bottom or the top, whichever we want to call this, to the 4 pieces that make up the sides, the gussets. And the way that I have found to sew is from the big solid piece of fabric. Alright, so that is what I plan to do, and I will not be sewing over any pins. And that's all of them, isn't it? Yep, that's all 4. Alright, and then I have to do the other side. So, you know, the bottom part. So here is this all stitched, and see the corners are corners. Okay, so before I get into attaching the other side of this, I'm going to trim out some of these threads, and I'm going to trim these seams down with my pinking shears, because this one is washable and I don't want it to become a nested, messy disaster in the washing machine. So I have both the top and the bottom attached. Before I do any more trimming or anything else, I have to open it up, turn it right side out, and check to make sure that the corners that I just stitched are in fact stitched. It's really not possible to tell, at least for me it's not, without opening it up and double checking. So I'm going to do that. I might have to turn it back right, wrong side out, and do some stitching, but no matter what, I will have to turn it back out and clip this with my pinking shears. But here we go. Okay. Alrighty, here we go. Pull this part. There. I think that turned out really cute. I hope everybody has a wonderful, warm, happy weekend. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already subscribed, please consider doing so. And I will see you in the next one. Bye.